Hey, listen!
Hello everyone, I am here and I'm going to be doing a little audio review of Transformers Dark of the Moon. I just saw it and I'll give my general impressions. As for the first two movies, I'll give you my quick kind of opinions of those. First movie was really solid, stupid fun. I had a good time. Story was, I think as decently executed as they could with a show about car changing into robots and all that. It was good. I really enjoy it. Second movie, I did enjoy, and I do enjoy rewatching it mainly for the special effects because story-wise, there was a lot of problems, inconsistencies, contradictions, stuff. There was like a laundry list of things that didn't make sense about that second one. But what it does when it is doing things right, it does things very right. But I guess a lot of critics have trouble overlooking all its problems, like the really stupid humor. So I went to this third one kind of with rather high expectations because many of the reviews seem to say how much better this is than the second one, and it seems the only ones giving this absolutely terrible reviews are, well, it seems like the more snobby, every film has to be a high art type critic. Though, I shouldn't judge them, but yeah, it seems kind of. Yeah, I was expecting a lot of stupid, dumb fun and just have, a thrill ride the whole way through. And what I got was sort of that. First half, I must admit, it started off sort of strong. It felt a bit more serious in tone, and I think that's kind of what I didn't like about the first half, is that they tried to work a lot of that dumb humor in, and I don't think it worked too well in this. It felt kind of forced. In Revenge of the Fallen, at least that movie at times was a bit more lighthearted, and a bit more silly, and that kind of suited when the dumb humor was there. I mean, it was annoying, but it didn't clash as much as in this one. This time, whenever there's a dumb humor moment, it really sticks out more because much of the film tries to be more serious. Uh, yeah, it was okay. About halfway through the movie, I felt like it was kind of lulling. Basically, it has this whole space race thing and reverse engineering the Transformers technology to get into space and this thing they found on the other side of the moon and all that, and that's a basic idea. Yeah, that kind of works, but it's kind of. Maybe it's just me. I'm sure other people feel this way, though. It kind of doesn't blend just quite well with show about cars turning into giant robots and fighting. It's very hard to take that seriously, and I think the first two films were more aware that it's a dumb thing and have fun with it, whereas this one, I find that it's a little bit too dark at the start, and it kind of just doesn't feel right. Uh, the silly moments were also quite silly, and I mean, it didn't work in Revenge of the Fallen, and it doesn't work that well here. Particularly one scene where there's this panicky Chinese man, and they utilize his name for a lot of jokes. His last name is Wang, and it really just feels like really forced and not particularly funny. It just felt uncomfortable. Now, as for what I do like, is the last half. The last half is excellent. I mean, it's to me what I think a lot of people who are disappointed by the first two would want out of a Transformers movie. It's unabashed, just action, and just focusing on delivering that kind of rush and that kind of excitement of giant robot fights non-stop, but it wasn't as tiring as in Revenge of the Fallen. With Revenge of the Fallen, that last kind of action part near the end, after a while I was just thinking, is this still going? This managed to always surprise me and put new kind of spins on these action scenes, the set pieces and the camera angles. I watched it in 3D, and one part I particularly like that I thought was really fun was where a missile is flying under bridges and all sorts of stuff, and you actually feel like you're on the missile cruising through the sky. That worked very well, and I mean there's a lot of good battle choreography, a lot of good destruction, a lot of thought put into each scene, and the set pieces. People tend to criticize Michael Bay as being sort of a one-note guy. Hey, let's blow stuff up. Let's blow stuff up, and that's simply everything he does. But I think there's a certain talent he has at blowing stuff up. Like when you blow stuff up, you need to find a creative and entertaining way to do it. Otherwise, you become numb to it. His explosions and destructions always pack a lot of oomph. They make they make you feel the hit, and there's some of the most creative forms of destruction were in this film. One involving a tall building that well, I won't spoil, but it's really, really, really good. That one scene. The pacing is a little bit mixed. It feels doesn't have that natural flow, and it feels like it's a bit too bogged down. The first half is way too slow, and the middle just slows to a crawl until I lost interest. But then once it kicks into gear again, you're like, man, this is awesome. I'm not gonna forget this soon. It's just a thrill ride. It's the reason to watch this. Now, in terms of effects, I mean, the CG is really good. People like complain, oh, it's CG. They should be using, puppets and robots like real mechanical robots. But for the type of action scenes they're doing in this, they really couldn't use those. They'd be too bulky and slow, and while it may have a certain charm to it, for these type of action scenes, it's really impractical. And if the director wants these robots to be like samurais fighting like agile warriors, they're not gonna use the puppetry. I think people just have to accept that CG's here to stay, but when it's done right, it's really effective. And most of the time, this CG in this movie is done right. I think we're not quite at the level where CG is perfectly flawless and looks perfectly natural, but it's pretty convincing, and the only areas that really look fake were when entire environments were rendered in CG, because then you start to notice the areas where it feels kind of like a cutscene from a video game. It doesn't look quite as good as it could. Now, the actual scenes of destruction near the last half of the movie, they were just tons of particles, tons of everything. The sound design is excellent. Guns and the lasers and all that, they have a lot of pop to them. They clearly, the people who work on the sound of these movies know what they're doing, because they know how to make really pleasant to the ear sounds. So yeah, from a production standpoint, I really have very little complaints. I have a little bit of a beef with kind of, once again, the dark, kind of shady grittiness, the lack of color, but that's kind of what they were going for. It was going for an alien invasion feel, and that sort of works and makes this one stand on its own. I do kind of miss, though, the vividness of the last two movies, but this works in its own way, and I can't really blame it for a stylistic choice. That's just personal preference, not a flaw in the movie. Overall impression, I'd basically say yeah, I enjoyed this more than the second movie. The second movie, I had no kind of thoughts going through my mind after I watched it. No kind of, wow, I want to see that part again, or I want to see this again. That wasn't there when I saw the second movie. I was like, that was okay, and I still intended to buy it when it came out, and watch it and have a good time, but it didn't leave that kind of feeling afterwards. The darker atmosphere, one thing it does do right is once the whole last half of it comes into play, it really feels good. The whole setting, it really works. It feels much more dangerous. They're much more of a threat. Whereas the first two movies, the Decepticons had a very almost like kind of a comic book cartoon villain type of plan. I won't spoil it in case you haven't seen the first two, but they seem very right out of something out of a cheesy sci-fi, which kind of works. This kind of has that element. There's a certain aspect to it that's very kind of over the top and cartoon-like, but I actually felt that this was more of a threat, and this was more of an invasion, and this was more a complete attack. If this happened in real life, I could buy it more and feel legitimately scared. Whereas the second one, I was just along for the fun. I never really felt that impact. I tried not to give away really anything of the plot. Just give you my general impressions. I'd overall say if you like the first two, you're probably gonna like the third one. It's definitely better than the second one, and if people watch the third one kind of after watching the second one, I think they'll appreciate it a lot more than if they watch this movie as an individual, because it's like, wow, this is more what the second one should have been. Not that the second one, like, I'm one of its defenders. I'm the closest thing to a Revenge of the Fallen apologist you'll find. And I defend, like, apparently there's tons of production problems, like, problem after problem after problem. They never had this perfectly consistent, time to write a script. They didn't have all that time. They couldn't put it together. The script was pretty much finished in a weekend, and they had the writer's strike going on, so it's understandable why that didn't work out. And I mean, Michael Bay pretty much apologized for the state of the second movie, and I'm actually kind of, I like that, because it shows he's, what's the word I'm thinking of? someone showing a sign of modesty. Or is that it? Someone with modest behavior kind of shows their. Is that the word I'm thinking of? Probably not, but they're showing that they've made mistakes and they had trouble, and they're willing to admit that things didn't work out as good as they should have. And I mean, when was the last time you heard George Lucas say Jar Jar was a bad idea? So hey, if you want good cheesy fun summer movie, and you can live past some of the doldrums and some of the weak points of the first half that really feel kind of a bit uninspired, a bit tired, and a bit trying too hard, but it's still there's a small fun amount of action scenes spruced in the first half that just keep it fresh enough to build up to the climax of the trilogy that really feels good, and it's easily probably the highlight of the whole series. It's that good. So yeah, if you're not into it, it probably won't convert you. If you want to see it, if you want to see how it's done, I recommend it. But don't expect an artistic masterpiece that really captures the human spirit. It's a fun popcorn movie and nothing more, but a very fun one that should satisfy anyone's itch for giant robot battles. So hey, that's my review. Thank you for tuning in. I thought I'd do this for you because I know this is what you want to hear, so I'm giving it to you. Thank you all, and goodbye.